Hi, Rob here for Shape Your Future Online. In the video today, I'm going to discuss anxiety, in particular my relationship with anxiety, how that affected my life, and also how I've managed to completely eradicate it from my life. So where to start? I guess really my anxiety started when I was about 21 years old. So we're talking 1995. I left school in 1990, had a great time at school, had a great upbringing. I was into sports, very fit, really liked school. I was into science. I had visions of becoming a scientist, which I managed to achieve. But on leaving school, I never smoked or took drugs or anything like that at school. But when I left school, the day I left school actually, when I was 16, I took LSD and entered a whole new world. And about this time, it was the time of sort of house music was taking off. And there was a whole sort of underground scene that I became involved with. One of music and drugs, partying, dancing, mind-expanding conversation. And I became heavily involved in that for about 5 years. Like I said, it was kind of like a whole new world, really. But as well as doing all that recreational drug use and, going to all these nightclubs and things like that in the evenings. I mean, I worked in nightclubs at the time then as well. I just wanted to be completely immersed in that scene. But what I then started to get into was spiritual practices in the daytime, but also, so meditation and things like that. But with the use of psychedelic drugs like LSD and mushrooms and things like that. So I was very much into things like Timothy Leary and things like that. Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream and all that sort of business. So I spent a lot of time doing yoga and meditation and, exploring different levels of consciousness. Through those practices and through the use of psychedelic drugs, along with all the partying and not a lot of sleep for 5 years. And so in 1995, I was at a football match. So I'm watching a football match. It was busy. There's about 40,000 people there. I'm just enjoying this match, and then all of a sudden, something just clicked like that in my head. And I started having a panic attack. Everything went very, very, very strange. It was like I was high. It was like I was on acid, I was tripping. And I just knew I had to get out of there. I got out of there and I got on a bus and I went home, and I had this, all of a sudden I was just filled with complete and utter fear. There was no separation between me and anything else. It was like a non-dual experience. If you've taken drugs, maybe you'll know what I mean. I became really, really paranoid about things. On the way home, I became paranoid that I was going to float into the sky because gravity might stop. I mean, this is the kind of thing that was going on in my head. That went on for 3 days. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. But what started to me was, the way that I explained it was that I just lost touch with reality. I had to check that things were there. So I'd have to touch things. Think that I didn't feel any separation between, me and anything. So I was constantly touching things. Just completely lost any sort of spatial awareness. Completely paranoid, overthinking things, and just my anxiety. I didn't even know it was anxiety then. It wasn't. I can't even say fear. I would say terror. I would use the word terror. I was in a situation where I was, from the moment I woke up, I was just fearful. It felt like I was dying. I mean, now when I look back on it and I speak to some quite enlightened people now, I mean, it's very possible that there was a lot of psychosis going on because of, you know, heavy drug use, but also because of all this higher consciousness work that I was doing. It's quite possible that I was going through some ego death as well, which is very, very scary because, okay, your body isn't dying, but you are literally dying. Your sense of self is dissolving away. That's another topic. But let's get back to the anxiety. So I you know, maybe that was a bit long, but I just wanted to sort of set the scene, and this is where a lot of this is where anxiety came from me. Couldn't really pinpoint what it was. You know, anxiety isn't very tangible, is it? You know, it's a kind of it's a mixture of thought and feelings, and it's self-perpetuating. It's a very, very complex thing. Although what I've come to understand, and I'll come to later, is that actually it's not that complex. It's actually quite simple in a way when you get your mind round to it. So, but this, you know, I never talked to anyone about this. I kept it to myself. I really did keep it to myself. And this, you know, this real sort of terror of being awake, you know, I think lasted for at least a year. It's very difficult. And this is where, you know, I never used to drink before that. I rarely drunk before I was 21. I took a lot of drugs, but I never really drank. And, you know, my bad relationship with alcohol came from my anxiety. And, you know, 25 years later, I had to admit to myself that I was an alcoholic. I've now been in recovery for a year. But, you know, going back to that time, I just didn't understand what was going on with me. I think that's one of the things with anxiety. You can't pinpoint it. You don't really know where it's coming from. The more you try and control it, the less out of control it becomes and the worse it becomes. But you know what I've come to learn about anxiety is that it's all based there. You're trying to control it in your conscious mind, but it all comes from the subconscious. It all comes from, you know, some conditioning, some past experience. And I think that's the thing, you know, the subconscious, it goes back to the past. It goes back into memory to get its information. And, you know, it gets those feelings from a time in the past and puts it into the present. Because one thing that I've come to understand is that the unconscious mind, or the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, really operates, or it only works in the now. Yeah, it's there. It's a survival mechanism. It's a survival mechanism, so it only works in the present. So, you know, although it's going into the past for its information and evoking those feelings and putting it into the present, that's where it is, and that's therefore where we need to deal with it. I mean, also, you know, it certainly doesn't deal in the future. The subconscious doesn't deal with any future tense at all. It doesn't compute with that. You know, if you say things to, you know, if you talk to people who've got anxiety, or if you talk to yourself when you've got anxiety and say that everything's going to be okay in the future, that's not really very comforting, is it? If you've got anxiety, I'm sure you'll know what I mean if you suffer from that. You can only deal with it in the now. You have to, and that's really where mindfulness and meditation practices for me, which actually got me into trouble in the first place. They've been my saviour in the end. I think, you know, also the unconscious mind doesn't like negative words, like things like can't, don't, stop, avoid. think about, when you talk to a young child, and you say, don't do this, or you can't do that. Does the child stop doing it? No. What you need to do is you need to say, instead of saying to someone, don't shout, the best way to make, to make them understand and make them comply is to actually say something like, can you speak more quietly, please? That works. You understand that. There's an understanding in that. That can't, it doesn't really work. The reason that I'm saying that, I think, is that, instead of using negative words to either someone who has anxiety or when speaking to yourself, if you have it, is, you can't say, oh, stop thinking like that. Well, stop thinking for a start. You can't stop thinking. What the subconscious mind does respond to is, action words and images that evoke some sort of feeling or emotion. So, we can talk in the present moment about what we're doing, how that's helping us, how it's helping us now, not how it's going to help you in the future. That won't work with you. You have to do everything in the now. All the inquiry that you do and all the speaking has to be what you're doing now. Put an ing onto the end of a lot of words. What are you doing? How is that making you feel now? That's the way that I've really started to, or I did start to manage anxiety and to actually get rid of it. So I'm conscious that I'm rambling a little bit here. I hope I'm making sense. But so coming back to, being mindful in the moment, doing meditation practices, talking about what you're doing now, and reprogramming your subconscious mind. Meditation for me is, I always used to think that it was a way of controlling your mind. But if when you start to get into this and when you think about it, you can't control your mind. You can't control thoughts because they arise. And then you can, I guess, you think you're controlling them away because then you can start to play with them. And that's part of anxiety, isn't it? You start to perpetuate things and make it worse and worse and worse. But the more you try to not think about something, the more you start to think about it. You can't push things away. You can't push things into the back of your mind. It doesn't work. They're always there. So you've got to have a different relationship with those thoughts. You've got to have a different relationship with thoughts in general. That's what meditation's all about. So meditation isn't about controlling your mind. It's about learning that your mind doesn't control you. Your thoughts don't control you. When you start to get into meditation, when I started to get into meditation, I really started to see that thoughts were arising and then going away. Other thoughts would arise and they would go away. And feelings arise and go away. And sensations arise and they go away. Nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent. Through meditation and self-inquiry, you can really start to see that these things are true. And this helped me immensely in meditation. I mean, even if you don't really suffer from anxiety, the benefits of meditation are there for everyone to see. I mean, anyone who partakes in meditative practices will tell you that, they do become calmer. Not just when they do meditation, but throughout their day. And if they do a bit of meditation, maybe in the morning or evening every day, they do become calmer in their life. But for me, a lot of meditation. I mean, I now meditate maybe 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. Since I gave up drugs and alcohol over a year ago, this is something I've been doing. I've been on a 10-day meditation retreat to India as well, where I took a vow of silence and meditated 11.5 hours every day for 10 days. That was just amazing. I mean, the benefits to me are absolutely outstanding after that. That's about 3 weeks ago that I did that. I feel like I can see around corners now. Because there are no corners. I don't live in these boxes that I used to live in. There's no limitations anymore. And I can safely say that I don't suffer from anxiety at all now. I have a completely different relationship to my thoughts and my feelings. I understand through meditation that they're not my own. My thoughts aren't my own. They come and they go. Some of the feelings that I used to have, I mean, the tightness in the chest, and then thinking and thinking and thinking more and thinking, why is this happening to me, and I can't get rid of it, and then like a very heavy weight being pushed on me so I can't even breathe, so that I've got to go and drink alcohol or take drugs to relieve myself of this pressure. A pressure it's not even there. Where is the weight? Where is this tension that you feel? It's not physically there. It's all up here. It's all up here, and it can all be controlled. It can be controlled by thinking differently, using different language, talking to your subconscious, being in the moment, and just, when you actually give in, when you can finally really give in and go with the flow, not fight it anymore, that's when you're actually in control. That's a paradox. There's so many things in life that are a paradox. But when you completely let go, when you submit yourself to everything, the thoughts, the feelings, just when you can let it go, that's when you're actually in control. And that's where I'm at the moment. I hope this has helped anyone out there who's either suffers from anxiety or knows people, has loved ones with anxiety. Hopefully you know how better to talk to other people or yourself, but also, really investigate what is out there in terms of spiritual practices, meditation and yoga and things like that. I can't stress to you enough the importance of those in my life. I'm now completely free of that. I'm completely free of drugs and alcohol and the want of those substances. I have my own online business. I have complete time and financial freedom in my life. And this is just something that even a year ago I couldn't even dream of. So I'll stop there. Maybe I've rambled. Maybe it's been useful. I don't know. All I know is that I'm feeling great, and I hope that this touches someone out there and inspires them and helps them to improve their life, and even if not eradicate their anxiety, at least reduce it somewhat, because it really does. I know it has a control on your life. I know that. I feel that. But by letting go, I now have complete control. Okay. Thanks for listening. See you soon. Bye-bye.